Luka Modrić stands on the sideline, watching the young man who has just walked into history, and for the first time in a long time, he is lost for words. He just stands there in silence. All around him, the stadium roars as if someone has opened a hatch into another reality. The camera catches his face. 40 years old, a World Cup champion, a Ballon d'Or winner, a man who has seen it all in football, and this very everything has just been rewritten by a 19-year-old kid from Istanbul. Arda Güler. Remember that name if you haven't already. Because what he did last night at the Santiago Bernabeu, no one has done in 22 years. Not Kaká, not Benzema, not even Cristiano himself in his best seasons. For 22 years, the record lay untouched, until this kid walked up and picked it up like an empty box. And the most interesting part here isn't the number. The most interesting part is how he got there. Because trust me, Arda Güler's path to this night didn't begin at Real Madrid's academy. Not at Fenerbahce. Not even at the first training camp his father took him to. It all started much earlier, and much stranger than you might imagine. But let's take it step by step. Istanbul, the Altındağ district. Not the richest, not the poorest, just ordinary. A middle-class family, father working, mother running the household. A typical Turkish childhood with shouting in the yard and a ball being kicked around until dark. Little Arda, relatives say, was a child you couldn't tear away from the ball, even at the dinner table. He ate with the ball between his legs. He slept hugging it. By the age of 4, he was already striking at goal so hard that his father started to wonder, either this is genius, or we have a new window-smashing specialist in the family, and every pane of glass in the apartment is at risk. They took him to Gençlerbirliği, a small academy, nothing special, and there, the coach told his father something that parents of football prodigies hear often but rarely believe. Your son doesn't have the same foot as other kids. Not he's faster, not he's stronger. Exactly, not the same foot. The way the ball sits on his instep, how he feels its weight. You can't teach that, the coach said. You're born with it. At 11, he was picked up by Fenerbahce. And here, pay attention, begins the first peculiarity in his story. Arda was never the fastest in the team, never the tallest, never the most physically powerful. By every metric that European scouts look for today, height, sprint, jump, lung capacity, he was in the middle group, sometimes even below average. Coaches would throw up their hands. The kid does things on the pitch that no one else does, but on paper, he looks ordinary. No miracle stats, just the ball and his head. And here, the real story begins. The reason you'll watch this video to the end. Because usually, the tale of talent follows a familiar path. Spotted early, signed early, thrown into the first team early, and off they go. Arda's story was different. He faced resistance. From inside the club, inside the country, inside football itself. At 16, they tried to sideline him. Too skinny, too quiet, too... Hear this word. Not for modern football. Modern football demands athletes, machines, 40-meter sprinters. And here's this kid, standing, waiting for the ball, receiving it on his instep, and with one touch, he dissects the game so that half the defense is left looking foolish. Old-school football. The football that supposedly died with Zidane. And then, at 17, in a match for Fenerbahce against Antalyaspor, Arda scores a goal after which Turkey finally stops arguing. He receives the ball in a half position, a defender leans on him, the kid makes one, body feint, and the ball curls into the corner, as if placed there by hand. The stadium goes berserk. Turkish journalists write the next day, "We were afraid to believe it, but it's true. We have an heir to Hagi. Hagi. Gheorghe Hagi, the Maradona of the Carpathians. A legend of Barcelona and Real Madrid. A man still called the greatest left-footed player in Eastern Europe. A comparison that would break any normal teenager. Arda took the comparison in stride and started playing even more freely. And now, the turning point where things got serious. Summer 2023. Real Madrid signs Güler for €20 million. 20 million for a kid whom Barcelona had offered more for. Perez, That same Perez would later tell those close to him, "This is the deal of the decade, maybe the best since Cristiano." And Cristiano, let me remind you, cost Real Madrid 94 million. But then came the setback. Not Arda's fault, his body's. His first season in Madrid turned into a nightmare. Injury after injury. Knee, muscle, knee again. The kid everyone was waiting for as a revelation played a handful of matches. Sat in the stands. Recovered. Sat. Recovered. Ancelotti, the cautious Italian, didn't rush him. Told the press, "Give him time. This kid is worth the wait." Fans grumbled. "Where's our Turk? Where's the promised magic?" And here, in this long, dark pause between the signing and the moment the world finally saw the real Güler, the player that Modrić embraced last night was born. Because while he was in the rehabilitation center, while he couldn't run, he watched. For hours. Zidane's tapes, Iniesta's recordings, old Hagi matches, games of Modrić himself, especially that season when Luka won the Ballon d'Or. Arda would later tell a Turkish journalist in an interview, "I realized I couldn't outrun everyone, so I had to think faster than everyone." And that phrase, it's the key to everything that happened next. Because the 2025-26 season, Arda Güler starts as a different player. He's not faster, not stronger, but he's, how to explain this, half a second earlier in understanding where his teammate will run, earlier in seeing which foot the defender is leaning on, earlier in releasing the pass than the ball itself reaches him. Ancelotti moves him deeper, into the number 10 line alongside Bellingham. And suddenly, it all starts clicking. First, a goal against Betis. From a free kick, into the top corner, over the wall. The top corner, precisely the top corner. The commentator shouts that the ball went along a ruler. Then, 2 passes in the match against Getafe. Both assists so good that Vinicius just smiles and gives a thumbs up. Then, 4 straight starts in the Champions League with contributions to goals. And here, the whispers begin. Quiet, cautious, but growing louder. Maybe we have something special. And now, we approach that night. The record. Modrić at the touchline. The match against Manchester City. Champions League, quarterfinal, second leg. Madrid at home. The aggregate score is 2-2. The stadium is so packed that the air is thick as dough. Guardiola fields a powerhouse lineup. Ancelotti starts Güler. On the 12th minute, Arda receives the ball in the center circle. 1 defender on him. He makes that body movement. The one they don't teach, it seems, but inherit. The ball rolls left. The defender stays right. Then, a pass into Vinicius's run, who one touches it back. And Arda, without any preparation, in one fluid motion, slots the ball into the bottom corner from 20 meters. 1-0. On the 43rd minute, it's him again. Not a goal this time. A backheel pass to Bellingham, who finds Mbappe, and Mbappe hammers it in. 2-0. The Santiago Bernabeu is standing on its head. In the second half, City pulls one back. The tension seeps into the viewer's skin through the screen. 78th minute. Arda gets the ball again. Now at the edge of the box. Feint. Another feint. Shot. The post. Follow-up. Goal. 3-1. A hat-trick of actions. 2 goals and assist. In one game. At 19 years old. In the Champions League knockout stage. Against Manchester City. And now, the record. 22 years ago. The 2003-04 season. A Brazilian named Kaká, then still a rising star, produced an incredible Champions League run. 4 consecutive matches with direct goal involvements in the knockout stage. At the time, it seemed like the ceiling for a player under 20. For 22 years, that benchmark stood. Players came close. Messi in his debut season, Neymar at Santos, even a young Mbappe. No one, hear me, no one surpassed it. Arda Güler yesterday made it 5 games in a row. 5 knockout matches, each with a goal or an assist. Before the age of 20, no one in the modern history of the Champions League has done this. Only Kaká. And now, him. And here comes Modrić, who comes on as a substitute in the final minutes, approaches him after the final whistle. Luka Modrić, who was also told early in his career that he was too skinny, too quiet, too not for modern football. Who walked that same path himself, from two to the only one. He takes Arda by the shoulders, leans into his ear, and says a few words. Arda would later tell journalists, he said, "Don't ever stop." And he added that one day, I'll be standing where he stands now. Think about that. A 40-year-old Ballon d'Or winner tells a 19-year-old Turk, "You will become me." That's not a compliment. That's a passing of the torch. And here's the right moment to ask the question that's probably already spinning in your head. If you've read this far, write in the comments one thing. Do you believe Arda Güler will indeed become the next Ballon d'Or winner in the next 5 years? Just yes or no. No long explanations. I read the comments myself and want to understand what real fans feel, not the press, not the analysts. And if you don't want to miss the next breakdown, where I'll explain why Real Madrid might already be secretly negotiating a new contract for Arda until 2032, subscribe. Not for me, for yourself, so you don't miss out. Back to the story. What's the most astonishing thing in all of this? Not the goals, not the record, not even Modric's reaction. The most astonishing thing is how Arda plays with time. Modern football is built on speed. Runners, sprinters, machines. Coaches talk about distances, kilometers, VO2 max metrics. Everyone is looking for the next Mbappe, explosive, fast, strong. And here comes a guy who moves, essentially, slowly, who doesn't make 30-meter sprints, who doesn't win shoulder-to-shoulder duels. And this guy breaks the record of a man who was considered the epitome of elegance in his generation. This means one thing. Football hasn't died as an art. It's just been hiding, waiting for someone who would dare to play, not the way modern infographics demand, but the way the ball itself demands. And one more detail few noticed. After that game, a journalist asked Ancelotti, "Carlo, what's in Arda that others don't have?" Ancelotti paused, thought, and said, "He plays as if he's in no hurry, and everyone around him is in a hurry. And that makes him always arrive earlier than everyone else." Remember that phrase. It explains not just Arda Güler. It explains every great player you've ever seen. Zidane was in no hurry. Iniesta was in no hurry. Modrić, when he came out in the Champions League final against Liverpool, was also in no hurry. They all lived in some other tempo, and because of that, the ball found them, not the other way around. Arda Güler is the next in that lineage. Not Zidane's heir in technique, not Modric's clone in position. His own character in a very old play, a play called Football as Thinking, Not as Running. So when you watch the next Real Madrid match, don't focus on Mbappe's goals. Don't focus on Vinicius's speed. Focus on the kid wearing number 15, who sometimes just stands and watches. Just watches. It seems he's checked out of the game. It seems something hasn't caught his attention. And then, with one touch, he does what no one else does. Turkey has already gone crazy. In Istanbul, they say, on the day of that city match, traffic on the streets stopped. Not jams. The opposite. Empty roads. Everyone was glued to their screens. After the third goal scored in Güler's honor, fireworks were set off in one of the neighborhoods. City services spent 2 hours clearing up afterward. The little boy in Altındağ, who couldn't be separated from the ball at the dinner table, has become someone an entire generation of Turkish children look up to. Not as a star, as proof. Proof that you can come from an ordinary yard, an ordinary family, without ideal physical stats, without a dad agent, without boarding schools at age 10, and still stand alongside Kaká, alongside Modrić, alongside Zidane. For 22 years, the record lay there, waiting while a boy was growing up in Istanbul, who was told, "You're not for modern football." And modern football last night stood up and gave him a standing ovation. And now, as I finish this story, I want you to think about one thing. Not about stats, not about transfers, not about how much Arda will earn in his next contract, but about the fact that sometimes the biggest stories don't start with someone being the fastest. They start with someone being more patient, more observant, quieter. Luka Modrić at the touchline was silent not because he couldn't find the words, He was silent because words at a moment like that are redundant. One man, who gave everything to football, saw another who is just beginning to give. And he understood. The baton has been passed. He can breathe now. Arda Güler has only just begun. And if this night is only the beginning, then over the next 10 years, we're in for something worth staying in front of the screen for. Staying a fan. Staying someone who believes there's still magic in football. I believe. If you do too. See you in the next breakdown.